Hansel and Gretel. A long time ago, a poor woodcutter lived on the edge of a deep forest with his wife and two children, Hansel and Gretel. They had a small cottage, and life was not easy. The winter was long and harsh, and even though their father worked from morning until night, they had very little food. Every day, they shared the last crumbs of bread and dreamed of the day when they would have plenty to eat again. One morning, with their stomachs rumbling from hunger, Gretel whispered to Hansel, "We have to do something. I don't want Mama and Papa to be sad." So, they decided to go into the forest to find berries or something to eat. They set off at sunrise. The golden light shone through the trees, and the forest smelled of pine. They searched for mushrooms and berries, but their basket remained empty. As they wandered deeper and deeper, the trees grew taller and darker, and soon they realized they didn't know the way home. "Hansel, I think we're lost," Gretel whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Don't worry, Gretel, we'll find our way back," Hansel reassured her, though he wasn't so sure himself. All day they wandered through the forest. When night fell, they curled up together under a great oak tree. The wind whispered through the branches, and owls hooted in the darkness. Exhausted and hungry, they fell asleep. The next morning, they woke as the first rays of sunlight peeked through the trees. "We have to keep going," Hansel said bravely. They walked and walked, when suddenly Gretel gasped, "Hansel, look!" "What is that?" Through the trees they saw a little house. But it wasn't like any house they had ever seen. It was made entirely of gingerbread, icing, and candy. The roof smelled of cinnamon, the windows sparkled like caramel, and the fence was made of sweet marzipan. Their mouths watered. "This can't be real," Gretel whispered. "But it is," Hansel said, reaching out to touch the gingerbread wall. He broke off a small piece and popped it into his mouth. It was the most delicious thing he had ever tasted. Gretel took a bite from the window frame and licked the sugary icing. It's like a dream." Just then, the door creaked open, and an old woman appeared. She was bent and wrinkled, but she smiled kindly.
"Oh my, who is nibbling on my house?"
she called in a sweet voice. The children froze, but the woman only laughed.
"You must be so hungry and tired, my dears. Come inside and I'll give you something to eat and a place to rest."
Inside, the house smelled of warm cakes and fresh milk. The children eagerly ate, not knowing that the old woman was actually a wicked witch. As soon as they finished, she hissed,
"Now I will fatten you up, boy, and when you're nice and plump, I'll bake you for my supper."
She grabbed Hansel and locked him in a cage. Gretel cried out, but the witch turned to her and snapped,
"And you will help me in the kitchen."
Days passed. Every morning the witch came to Hansel's cage.
"Show me your finger, so I can see if you're getting fat,"
she demanded. But Hansel was clever. He held out a thin twig instead of his finger. The witch had poor eyesight and believed Hansel was still too skinny. One day she grew impatient.
"Enough waiting. Fat or thin, I will eat you today."
She ordered Gretel to heat up the oven.
"Check inside and tell me if it's hot enough."
But Gretel was no fool. "I don't know how," she said innocently. "Can you show me?" The witch grumbled but leaned forward to look inside. In that moment, Gretel summoned all her courage and gave her a big push. The witch tumbled into the oven and Gretel slammed the door shut. The witch screamed, but it was too late. She was gone. Gretel rushed to the cage and freed Hansel. "It's over, Hansel! We're free!" They searched the house and found a chest filled with gold and jewels. Stuffing their pockets, they set off to find their way home. After a long journey, they finally saw their little cottage in the distance. Their father stood in the doorway, tears of joy in his eyes. "My children, I feared I would never see you again." When they showed him the treasure, their mother beamed. "We will never be hungry again." From that day on, they lived happily with love and plenty to eat. And the gingerbread house? It disappeared into the depths of the forest, as if it had never been there at all.